Thank you all for your help lighting all of our candles this morning. Good morning. I'm Amber Scott, your Director of Religious Exploration, and my pronouns are she, they. Today's story is called Wonder Walkers, written and illustrated by Mika Archer. Wonder walk? Sure. Is the sun the world's light bulb? Is fog the river's blanket? Do mountains have bones? Are forests the mountain's fur? I wonder. Me too. Are trees the sky's legs? Are branches trees' arms? Are roots the plant's toes? Do caves have mouths? Are shells the shore's necklace? Is the ocean the world's bath? Are rivers the earth's veins? Is the wind the world breathing? Is rain the day's tears? Is the moon the world's nightlight? I wonder. Me too. The end. Approaching things with awe and curiosity is one simple way to let your imagination soar and to see things in a new light. Today, let us consider the small ways we may be able to cultivate wonder and openness to the peace and mystery of this season. Together, let us sing our young people back to their families and out to class.
In the month of December, we'll be dedicating our donations to the Holiday Appeal, which supports the important work of this congregation. And here to talk about what the congregation means to him is Glenn Waring.
Hi, I'm Glenn Waring. I've been around since the 70s. I'm older than half of you. Also known as Fluff's husband. A lot of people don't know about that, I suppose. I joined in the 70s. Many meaningful things of my life were a result of the church, but until just recently, I didn't realize how different my life would have been if not for this place. I met my wife while here in the 70s. Our two daughters were raised here. My younger daughter and I spent a lot of time catching up when she visited Columbus over this last Thanksgiving. She's an amazing person, dedicated herself to the care of others and made a difference in the world, and she's just 40. She worked the last 4 years in a small hospital on the East Shore of Virginia and helped to enhance her department with better equipment and staffing. She's delivered over 1,000 babies, she said. She asked what I was up to, and I said, well, I'm enjoying being married to your mother, 43 years, visiting your sister's big family in DC. They have a lot of kids, and time with friends and a few long-term clients. I said the church had some hard times to work through, and this prompted us to really start talking, and she shared about a time in her teens when she'd felt dangerously suicidal. I knew she had battled depression, but had not realized the extent. She talked about First UU and shared, Dad, the youth group saved my life. The clarity of that sentence hit me like a ton of bricks, and without this congregation, I think my life and the lives of many others would have been so different. In February, Elizabeth starts with a hospital in Anacortes, Washington, where she'll continue to do babies, and in time, she's going to start a new palliative care department. She green-lighted sharing her story, as this place is very meaningful to her, as well as ourselves. It's not always easy. Being in community, sustaining a place like this really takes a lot of work. So, as Elaine Stritch sang, good times and bum times, I've seen them all, and my dear, I'm still here. I've pledged my time and my treasure, and it's from my heart. And for our road ahead, I invite you to donate to the church's appeal today. It's the holiday appeal. So your gift of $500, $100, whatever the amount, will help to fund our mission, which, recall, is to heal this sweet old world through love and reason. How hard could it be? Please donate generously, and if you need to, you can mob the table in the beach hall. Did I bring that up?
You can use the QR code on the screen or in your order of service, text the number on the screen, or go to our website, firstucolumbus.org, and click the Donate tab to share as you feel called. Your gifts help build a better church and a better world. Thank you. Our offering will now be received.
I'm the Reverend Susan McChrystal, and I have served this congregation as an affiliated community minister. I'm now retired from my chaplaincy there, but it's an honor to be with you here today. We have the possibility before us this day, every day, to live from awareness, from the stillness that is deeper than our words. We don't always manage to do it, so we pause and we practice remembering this silence that grounds our living, the stillness within each breath and its release, the peace that undergirds all of creation, the love that holds the mystery of our living and dying, the love that holds us. And so we enter into the open place where breath, music, poetry, and prayer begin. Our joys and concerns for today. Reverend Kelly's beloved grandfather passed away on Monday night. We send our love to her and her family as they deal with this loss. Reverend Kelly wants to say thank you to all the beautiful souls who support this congregation during times as this. Thank you, Pastoral Caring and the Pastoral Care team, for all the work that you do for us. Cynthia and Roger Hansen's 19-year-old son, Raven, died suddenly on December 6th. They are, of course, heartbroken. And we hold them in this love of this community. There will be a service this Wednesday in Gahanna, and we will send out a notice for details this week. And we extend our heartfelt condolences to you. Melissa Stanford's husband, Carrie, has been diagnosed with aggressive glioblastoma. It's a tumor on his right frontal lobe of his brain. He's at the James Cancer Hospital, and cards are welcome. And we hold you in our hearts. Tom Barrow and Sue Farnlocker's beloved cat, who was almost 18 years old, Georgie, crossed the Rainbow Bridge peacefully at home this past Friday. Blessings of peace. Michael Greenman had his knee replacement surgery, and he continues to recover at home. Just before a big ballet performance, Adam Mocharski's x-rays showed 8 stress fractures in both feet and ankles. Blessings of healing. And we send our congratulations to the North Unitarian Universalist Church. They will be moving back into their newly renovated building at Christmas, and they will have a building dedication on January 7th. And the stack of hymnals that you see by our chalice, that's our gift to them as they move back home. Yeah. These sorrows, these joys, and those that are unspoken, we hold them in our hearts and we lift them up for healing. And now join me in this spirit of prayer and meditation with the words of John O'Donohue, a morning offering. I bless the night that nourished my heart to set the ghosts of longing free into the flow and figure of dream that went to harvest from the dark, bread for the hunger no one sees. All that is eternal in me welcomes the wonder of this day. The field of brightness it creates, offering time for each thing to arise and illuminate. I place on the altar of dawn the quiet loyalty of breath, the tent of thought where I shelter, waves of desire I am sure to, and all the beauty drawn to the eye. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shell of yesterdays, to risk being disturbed and changed. May I have the courage today to live the life I would love, to postpone the dream no longer, but to do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more.
Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's strong, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great vision. We are sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe Spirit we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Thank you. Thank you. Today's reading comes from the Reverend Vanessa Southern, a colleague of ours, and we hold in common that with the congregation she serves in San Francisco, we ordained our affiliated community minister, the Reverend Meg McGuire. So we hold that in common. This reading. I couldn't hear myself think above the din of my surroundings. And when I finally did, I was surprised by what I'd heard. I'd lived my life in restless banter, but with a pause, I met what had eluded me, the part of me and her that waited to be born. In a flash, the voices of my friends abandoned, and my children, and my spouse could once again be heard. And I knew then the price of racing harried through my life. Child, friend, lover, parent, destiny, God, made mute by my deaf ears. No better argument for staying still was ever made to me, nor happiness in my entire life more easily found and held than in learning to be watchful, listening, waiting, looking for what watches, waits, and listens to be born. Please stay seated as we sing together hymn number 1001 in your teal hymnal or on the screen. It's entitled Breath, or Breathe, Breaths, and the words are in the above. Thank you.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fires of voices heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Ah, wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left, nor died or not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are in the crying grass, they are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen too often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the Father voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Ah, wish, wish. Those who have died will never, never left, nor died have not packed with the living. They are in the woman's breast, they are in the wailing child, they are in us in our arms, they are with us in the crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the Father's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Ah, wish, wish, ah.
Some of you may know this about me already. I am not a patient person. It can be deceiving because I often look so calm and composed, but mostly what I am calmly and composedly thinking about is how much I want what is coming next to come now. Consequently, I am the world's worst meditator. I know everyone experiences what they call monkey mind when sitting, but mine is more like a chimpanzee on steroids. About the best I can manage is a walking meditation where at least I get to move. It gives me something to do. There is rarely a time when I'm just sitting around doing nothing. Even I can't read just one book at a time. I usually have about 5 or 6 going. Even when I'm watching television, I have to be doing something. Thank goodness there's an app for my iPad to do jigsaw puzzles. And it doesn't ever lose its pieces. So I'm sure that you may have heard over time, and maybe in this congregation or elsewhere, from people that are far more experienced in the art of deep meditation than I am. So when I talk about the presence of the present, I'm not necessarily focusing on a deep spiritual practice. I'm just hoping that we can think together for a time about how to focus on what is most important. Rather than obsessively rehearsing our list of things to do to create the perfectly decorated house, the perfectly crafted dinner, the perfectly chosen set of gifts, how can we instead attempt to do what we hear constantly about this time of year, when to try to find the true meaning of Christmas, the meaning of this season? It's ironic when we constantly hear this, when almost everything surrounds us that gives us the opposite message. My favorite description of the frenziedness of the season comes from David Sedaris's hilarious description of having to work as an elf in Macy's Santaland. If you have not read this piece, you must. He said, on a busy day, 22,000 people come to visit Santa. And I was told that it is an elf's lot to remain merry in the face of torment and adversity. I promised to keep that in mind. What I want to propose is not that we do the opposite of that, to do nothing, but what I'd like to offer are some stories about creating space for something to come to us. That rather than making something happen, we can let something unexpected come to us. One of the most challenging things for me to have learned about spirituality is that it isn't something that we make happen. In his book, Will and Spirit, Gerald May makes the point that spiritual fulfillment, if it comes at all, might have to come as a gift rather than as an accomplishment. And that can be pretty tough for us as Westerners to learn. I have a good friend who used to work at a top advertising firm in Boston, a pretty dog-eat-dog environment. And after constantly being asked to help sell things that seemed to him at best useless and at worst harmful, my friend Mark quit his high-powered job, took a job as a clerk in a bookstore, and started studying Buddhism intently. After a year of learning and practice, he finally decided he had to quit that as well, because he said, I realized that despite my good intentions, what I was doing was trying to be the best Buddhist I could be. Competitive spirits die hard. In the silence of God, James Carse says, we can easily get this backward in the religious life, assuming that our primary spiritual assignment is to make ourselves presentable to God instead of presenting ourselves to God as we are. A part of my challenge in deeper spiritual practice is simply that of experiencing silence. Years ago, I attended a spirituality retreat, actually led by Marco Bellatini, that culminated in a full day of silence. We were at a beautiful retreat center, and I had gone out for a run in the lovely grounds, and I was late in returning to the final service of the evening, where they were giving instructions for how to enter into a full 24 hours of silence together. So as I came in, no one would speak to me. I was feeling guilty about being late, and I couldn't even explain to anyone why I was late. So those next 24 hours were excruciating to me. I was convinced that everyone was mad at me, until I finally realized that what silence had meant in my family of origin. In my family, you were given the silent treatment if you were bad. So I'd spent the day at the silence in the retreat completely convinced of the wrong thing, rather than being open to the presence of that day. Since then, I've come to know that silence can certainly be a shutting down of possibility, but it can also be an invitation to explore something deeper and more profound than we find in our concrete and literal world. Kathleen Norris speaks of the difference between the silence of obedience and the silence of expectation. She was teaching poetry to a group of third graders when one of these third graders said to her, "Silence reminds me to take my soul with me everywhere I go." It doesn't always have to do with silence, though. Sometimes spiritual gifts can come through words and music and play. A holiday memory that immediately comes to my mind was our family tradition of my father reading A Child's Christmas in Wales. After the meal was over and cleaned up, all the presents unwrapped, and the quiet starting to seep into our evening, he would take out the beloved book and in his deep, sonorous voice, tell the tale that we knew so well, but which never grew old. I still have a vivid internal memory of the village that the story paints. My father was a poet, rather an unlikely poet, because he never finished high school. He worked as a self-taught marine and computer science engineer. Nevertheless, his greatest passion was for poetry, and he self-published a lovely book of verse. Almost 30 years ago, he was diagnosed with lung cancer at the age of 63. He had personally installed asbestos on many of the ships that he had worked on, so his lungs were full of shards of glass. He lived only 3 months after his diagnosis. When he was dying, he asked me to read to him from his favorite poets, Walt Whitman, Dylan Thomas, Emily Dickinson. And during one such reading, he stopped me and he said he had something that he wanted me to do for him. The old bedside prayer of "Now I lay me down to sleep" kept running around in his head, and he wanted me to finish a version of that for him. He said, "I don't believe in a God that really cares whether I live or die, but I do long to feel like my life mattered in some way." So he started with one line, "Now I lay me down to sleep, while God the universe doth keep," and wanted me to finish it. I could not have been more humbled by this task, and day after day I would sit with these lines, willing a perfect finish to come to me. And finally, in a flash, it did. "Now I lay me down to sleep, while God the universe doth keep. And if I should die before the dawn, I pray that God, as I pass on, might doff a cap, perhaps a wink, that my life and death be worthy as I think." I was just writing these words down when my mother came to tell me that my father had just died. You could call it coincidence, or simply knowing that his death was so near that my thinking finally gelled. But I don't really need or want an explanation for how it happened at that precise moment. What I do know is that I felt ultimately connected not just to my father, but also to something beyond both of us that brought profound meaning and peace to me. And I definitely know it didn't happen because I willed it to. I keep thinking of the phrase, preparing the spirit. How do we prepare our spirits in this time to be present to what is true and meaningful and good? It is the opposite of creating a perfect experience, a perfect form, or a perfect thing. It is allowing the perfection of all things to come to us. In Brooklyn, New York, Chush is a school that caters to learning disabled children. And at a Chush fundraising dinner, the father of a disabled child delivered a speech that would never be forgotten by those who attended. After extolling the school and its dedicated staff, he cried out, "Where is the perfection in my son Shia? Everything God does is done with perfection, but my child cannot understand things as other children do. My child cannot remember facts and figures as other children do. Where is God's perfection?" And the audience was shocked by this question, pained by the father's anguish, and stilled by the piercing query. "I believe," he said, "that when God brings a child like mine into the world, the perfection that God seeks is in the way people react to this child." He then told the following story about his son Shia. One afternoon, he and his father were walking past a park where some boys that Shia knew were playing ball. And Shia said, "Do you think they'll let me play?" Shia's father knew that his son was not at all athletic, and most boys would not want him on their team. But Shia's father also understood that if his son was chosen to play, it would give him a sense of belonging for once. And so he approached one of the boys in the field and asked if Shia could play with them. And that boy looked around to his teammates for some guidance. Getting none, he took matters into his own hands and said, "We're losing by 6 runs, and the game is in the 8th inning. I guess he can be on my team. And we'll put him up to bat in the 9th inning." Shia's father was ecstatic, and Shia smiled broadly. Shia was told to put on a glove and go out to play short center field. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Shia's team scored a few runs, but was still behind by 3. In the bottom of the 9th inning, Shia's team scored again, and now with 2 outs and the bases loaded with the potential winning run on base, Shia was scheduled to be up. Would the team actually let him bat at this juncture and give away their chance to win the game? Surprisingly, Shia was given the bat, didn't even know how to hold it properly, let alone hit with it. But as he stepped to the plate, the pitcher moved a few steps to lob the ball in softly, so that Shia would be able to at least make contact with it. The first pitch came, and he swung clumsily and missed. So one of Shia's teammates came up and together helped him hold the bat. The pitcher again took a few more steps closer to toss the ball softly toward him. And as the pitch came in, Shia and his teammates swung at the ball, and together they hit a slow ground ball to the pitcher. The pitcher picked up the soft grounder and could have easily thrown the ball to the first baseman, where Shia would have been out, and that would have ended the game. But instead, the pitcher took the ball and threw it on a high arc to right field, far beyond the reach of the first baseman. And everyone started yelling, "Shia, run to first, run to first." And never in his life had Shia run to first. He scampered down the baseline wide-eyed and startled, and by the time he reached first base, the right fielder had the ball. He could have thrown the ball to the second baseman, who would tag him out, but Shia was still running, and the right fielder understood what the pitcher's intentions were. So he threw the ball high and far over the third baseman's head. Shia ran towards second base as the runners ahead of him deliriously circled the bases toward home, and as Shia reached second base, the opposing shortstop ran to him, turned in the direction of third base, and shouted, "Run to third!" And as Shia rounded third, the boys from both teams ran behind him, screaming, "Shia, run home!" And Shia ran home, stepped on the home plate, and all 18 boys lifted him on their shoulders and made him the hero, as he had just hit a grand slam and won the game for his team. And that day, said the father, those 18 boys reached their level of God's perfection. How do we prepare ourselves to live into this kind of perfection? A perfection of the soul that opens itself to the fullness of life, that accepts and welcomes our deeper perceptions, that welcomes us in all of our faults, in all of our limitations, as well as a greater sense of joy and wonder and even of sorrow. James Carr says, each of us has a prayer within, a genuine voice of the heart, but one we never express completely. In our restless desiring, isolated syllables and even phrases of that beseeching voice can be heard. Desire is the prosaic effort to silence that voice with one or another object to capture the heart, but the heart will not be quieted. It is inherently disobedient. But in this disobedience lies our truest hope. The response to God is to ask for that one thing which we can truly receive and which we can only have by receiving it, life itself. So may we listen deeply to ourselves and to others. Open our minds and hearts and spirits to the gift of grace that surrounds us always, if we but have eyes to see and ears to hear. Let us enter into this season with this joy burning in our hearts. Amen. So may it be. Our final hymn is the Advent hymn, O come, Emmanuel, found in your gray hymnal, number 225. Please take the hand of someone close to you if you so wish. Our benediction comes from an Inuit prayer. I think over again my small adventures, my fears, those small ones that seemed so big, for all the vital things I had to get and to reach, and yet there is only one thing, the only thing, to live to see the great day that dawns and the light that fills the world. Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason